And now, a show with inappropriate language. The Powell Movement.
Welcome to the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and this week it is part 2 with a living legend of snowboarding, Russell Winfield. The self-proclaimed Jackie Robinson of the sport is back, and like last time, he shares some amazing stories. But unlike last time, we talk about what took him out of snowboarding, and that's all I'm going to say about the interview in the intro. I don't want to spoil it for you. Before we get into the show, I want to ask you to follow me on Instagram at The Powell Movement, tell your friends about the show, and email me. My email is mike@thepowellmovement.com if you have any questions or suggestions for me. I should also mention that I have 2 sponsorship slots open, and if you're a brand in snow or action sports and you want to reach the right people and drive sales and awareness, my email works for that as well. Finally, I want to thank the folks that do make this show happen. They are all brands I believe in, and they are the best at what they do. They are Evo, Rescue Water, Spy Optic, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Now, let's talk to Russell Winfield. All right, so we are back at it. It is round 2 with Russell Winfield.
Ding, ding.
Last time you were here, you got a text. The podcast ended really quick, and you said, we'll do round 2. You're good with your word. We're here. What have you been up to since we talked in mid-December?
What have I been doing? I've been working my black ass off. I've been snowboarding a little bit up at Snoqualmie Pass.
Me too.
Nice. And spending a little time with my kids. They go to the Midwest for Christmas. See their grandparents with their mom. So I get to lay low. I'm not much of a holiday person, so it's good for me.
Are you a New Year's person? Do you do any kind of resolutions?
No. Here's my thing on that whole resolution thing. I think every day we as humans should try to wake up and be a better individual. And that should be about it. Like, oh, this year I'm not going to smoke cigs. Or this year I'm not going to flip the guy off. Fuck that. Just be a better human every day. Don't wait till the first of the year. And then you make all these huge, extravagant resolutions that last about 12 to 72 hours. And then what? Then you got a whole nother 364 and a half days to fuck up again. Come on. Just try to be a better person every day.
That's one way to look at it. I look at it as we'll do it for 30 days. And I'm going to stay true to that.
Well, 30 days is good.
So you were also at the Dirksen Derby, too. What was that event like?
That's right. I did go to the Dirksen Derby. Jeez, sorry about that. That was fun. I didn't get to snowboard. It's the second year I've gone down there to play music and didn't get to snowboard. You see, I got 2 daughters, and they're super into dance. They take tons and tons of dance. And they have 2 recitals, one at Christmas and one beginning of the summer. So every year, the Dirksen Derby seems to coincide with the Christmas recital. So last year, I drove down there, played a gig at this little bar with Matt Donahue, woke up in the morning and drove back. This year, me and Mikey LeBlanc's band, Shout the People, we played a gig and we brought in Matt Donahue and Addison Broman. And so we had never all played together. So we had to go down a few days early and kind of work some stuff out. But in the end, I played a gig Friday night and woke up Saturday morning. Me and Mikey drove back to Portland. Then he jumped on a plane. I jumped in my car and drove back up here just in time to be dance dad at the recital.
And what instrument do you play?
I play rhythm guitar and I sing.
And how long have you been in bands or playing music?
I've been playing music since about holy shit. That's not, wow, like 7 years?
Okay.
Wow.
You didn't have any musical experience before it and just wanted to learn how to play?
Well, my mom was a gospel singer. Funny story. She got recruited and was going on the road. It must have been 1971. And she got recruited by some gospel, they go on the tours and they sing the gospel music in the capes and the robes. And she got recruited to do that and found out she was pregnant.
Okay.
With me. So I ruined her gospel singing dreams, I guess. sorry, Mom, whatever. And I never really thought about it. And then 7 years back, I guess it was, wow, that's a long time. It can't be that long. It's 2019, so maybe it was. Me and Jamie and some people, we started doing the RV tours. Mm-hmm. It was kind of popular for a minute. When James travels in the RV, James brings a whole band worth of guitars and amps.
Okay.
You know, it's James. It's the way he runs it.
So you're either fucking around with him or you're bored?
Yeah, pretty much. So I started fucking around with him, and he was like, oh, you been practicing? I was like, nah, I just kind of watched what you were doing and figured out where to put my fingers, I think. He's like, oh, you should keep that up. We got off the tour. He came over to my house with 2 super gnarly guitars. Like really gnarly, expensive, super nice. And he's like, all right, I'm going to leave these here. And one was a old Fender Jägermeister, and one was an old Gibson Les Paul. And he's like, play both of these, and whichever one you like, that's what you are. You're either a Gibson guy or you're a Fender guy. And I like the Jägermeister, so I'm a Fender guy. As far as electric guitars go, yeah.
That's what you've been up to now in music, and when I say now, in the past month. But when we left off, there were a couple things that I didn't really get to in the early part of your career that I want to talk about because we touched on them, but I didn't really get the info I wanted. And I'm going to ask you about them again a little bit and see if the stories come out, because back then we talked a little bit about the rivalry between skiers and snowboarders when you first started snowboarding, because it was a different world back then. What was that really like on the hill? Was there fights? Was there hatred off the snow?
Well, here's the thing. Back when I was doing it, if you wanted to get tricky, so to speak, or be extreme or whatever it's called, you rode a snowboard.
If you wanted to be cool.
Yeah, if you wanted to be cool. I mean, there were bump skiers. Like this one dude that I've known forever. I don't know whatever happened to him. This kid named Sean Smith. You might know who he is.
I don't.
He's a bump skier, OG from back in the day. I've known him. Like at camps in Whistler, we used to want to fight each other. But Sean Smith was always the cool one. He was like this cool kid from wherever. You know, he ended up doing pretty well for himself, I guess, in the bump skiing world. I don't know.
He was your ski friend?
Yeah, he was the cool skier kid. Everybody else was kind of punk. But it just was kind of like, they were like, all right, knuckle draggers, and we were just like, you kooks. People try to blow it up and make it more than that, but that's really what it was. We didn't like them. They didn't like us, whatever.
And I would think you would see it more on the East Coast with East Coast people's attitudes compared to on the West, but it sounds like you go to the Glacier and Whistler, and that's where the fights happened.
You know, the Glacier and Whistler is a culmination of the world.
Yeah, you do have all of everyone. And then back then, there was a guy that I look at as the Yoda of snowboarding today. His name's Pat Bridges, but he grew up around where you grew up or in that scene. Mm-hmm. And you look at Pat right away, and you wouldn't guess he's a great snowboarder by any means, just looking at his build. But he's awesome. And what was he like back then as a dude?
He was pretty much the same. Dude, Pat Bridges has kind of been Pat Bridges his whole life. He hung out in a different... See, I left Vermont early. Like, I started traveling with Brushy when I was 17. So, I'd be back there a little bit. You know, I was in Vermont heavy. For a couple years, I was there super heavy. And then it was just kind of real sparing.
Okay.
Like, I got lucky. I got out.
Yeah, you got into the cog that actually traveled the world, and he was still in the regional world.
Yep. I would imagine him and Mark Sullivan and Joe Bogdansky and all them dudes. Well, Bogdansky left too. But all them East Coast dudes kind of just ran it. I don't know exactly. He was always super cool to me.
Were you guys tight at all, or was it just a dude you saw around?
I wasn't calling him up or nothing, but I knew him well. Like, hey, Bridges, what's going on, Pat? How you doing, buddy? How's Rutland?
And then back then, the big event in snowboarding was the U.S. Open. I really don't want to talk about the contest, but what I guess I want to talk about is a big comp like that. Snowboarding's a different world back then, and people partied. They didn't really worry about the event the next day, although they went and competed, but it seemed like the real big event at the U.S. Open, from what I've read, is the Hayes Brothers parties.
Oh, yeah.
You'd have Jake Burton there the night before his signature event, and that just says that everyone was out for the party at that point, and snowboarding was different back then because at a big event nowadays, people are getting some sleep and...
You know, going to the massage therapist, making sure that their calories are counted and they have the right protein intake and yoga and a steam. It was different, man. Let's just say everybody went to the party. and then everybody went to the hill with the same handicap the next morning.
Okay, so it's a level playing field?
Well, Palmer and Brush back then, before Tadia, were better than everybody. Craig, they were dudes, and Kitty, they were dudes who were better than everybody in Roach. But then it's like, who's going to pull it off? It was always Craig, because Craig, he was drinking, but he wasn't sending it. Craig was like the first real athlete. He was reserved, dude. He was an engineer.
Calculated?
Yeah, he was an engineer from UW. Like, he trained, run up hills or whatever. Craig was about it, and that's why he's Craig.
And that shit no one was doing back then, I don't think. I mean, even in any of the sports, it seemed like it was all about fun and not training. And if you said you were training, it was kind of like, what, are you a racer?
Well, everybody was racing. They had to be. And I know with me, I hated racing. And it wasn't because I hated going fast or making turns. It's just like, it was bringing me back to real sports, organized sports. I was like, this is no good.
You have a coach and you got to shave seconds off your time.
You got to wear these boots that I don't want to wear and wear these fucking speed suits and helmets with face mask. What the hell am I doing?
You have pictures of yourself wearing a speed suit and a helmet with a face mask?
Somebody probably does. Trisha Burns, I would imagine, has some.
And one thing about those Hayes Brother parties, a story I read about, and I'm hoping that you have some more insight into it. It sounds like there was a dude that traveled there from some state just to fight Sean Palmer.
Probably. I mean, Palm used to send it, and Palm didn't care, really, about much. He's Palm, you know what I'm saying? Like,
he's a different breed, it seems like, from everything you see.
He was really good at every activity he did, whether it's boozing, riding a dirt bike, mountain biking, snowboarding, skiing, buying Cadillacs, getting tattoos, talking shit. So it wouldn't surprise me if somebody did drive their vehicle to Stratton to fight Palmer, because he probably talked some shit. And you know what? It wouldn't surprise me either if Palm swung at him and might have knocked him out. Or he might have got beat up, depending on how late in the evening it was. Who knows?
And you were living with Matt Mitchell back then.
Absolutely.
You guys had legendary parties at your place as well. And what are some of the wild things that happened in your world there?
It was a nightly occurrence. It was kids off the leash, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? It was me and Mitchell in a house, and as hard as you went during the day, you had to go just as hard at night.
And there's no rules that someone breaks a window, whatever?
I mean, we didn't want people breaking the window.
Of course.
If they broke, what are you going to do?
Part of the game.
Yeah. So Matt Mitchell is a Jersey dude. And if you're from the East Coast, for the most part, sans the Foley family, Jersey people, a little bit, they're a little...
Yeah.
And they're great, and I love people from Jersey. But Mitchell and his boys, Grossi, and he had a couple other boys that would come up, and they had these little weird isms. Like, they'd start drinking, and they'd pick up a shovel or a rake and put it in your face and say, "Don't touch the stick! Don't touch the stick!" And I remember Craig was over, and pretty sure it was Jason Grossi had the stick right at him with, "Don't touch the stick!" Like screaming. And Craig's looking around like, who the fuck is this guy? And the house was called the Cook House. Like, the people who owned the house were the cooks. It was pretty funny. "We're cooking weed, bro. Going to Cook's house."
And how long does that last?
A season.
Did they invite you back for the next season?
Oh, the Cooks? No. I was out. Like, I was traveling after that. I kind of migrated a little bit. I stayed in the city, and then if I was in Vermont, I would go to Burlington.
And then when you're traveling, I would think when you're with brands, you go to crazy dinners and you do crazy things. I remember when I was at K2, we would go to a Smith & Wollensky's in Vegas, and we'd get put in a private room, and the deal was everybody had to steal something from the room. And I remember I think I had a sword down my leg once, and that was just the goal of the night. And I'm sure you had tons of antics like that. And what are the top ones that you can remember?
The top one is the first ride team. We went to Japan. And this is at the height of Japanese infatuation with American snowboard culture. And Ride was winning the race at that point, worldwide. So somehow we had this distributor who had a Formula One team and a Supercross team. It was crazy, the stuff that they were distributing in Japan. You know what I'm saying? They were big time. Like, this was like real deal shit. Like, we were all like, what the fuck's going on? So we go to the office. It's like this huge building in Tokyo, and you go upstairs, and there's like little desks, like school kid desks, with Japanese people, all in like blue lab-ish coats, just on computers. It was like some weird movie thing, for real. And then at the end of the hall, Mr. something or other's office, and there was just this baller-ass old Japanese dude in his office. I'm sure he had some crazy samurai swords on. I mean, it was like it was crazy. So we did our thing around there, and we went to this place called Kitashiga Heights. I actually just posted a little video, and part of it was from Kitashiga Heights. It was like 1994 or 5, and the only real snowboard park was like Bear Mountain. We pull up to this place, and they had closed the mountain for us, like this whole side of this resort mountain, and there was this huge chateau right there at the base. And so that was ours. It had restaurant, bar, like the whole kit and kabuki, onsen, and they had a real snowboard park. They like built huge rails and sea rails and Dendex 15-foot quarter pipes, and they had little mini 80cc Honda snowmobiles, and it was fucked. It was amazing. And so they had this demo, and there was like 10,000 people. It was weird. Maybe not, but there was thousands.
As far as you can see, it's just people.
Yeah, people just standing around watching, like 7 of us.
Yeah.
And then we had the party in the first floor of the chateau, and everybody was at the party. Some dude tried to give me one of those huge quadruple magnum of sake. Like, he handed me this magnum of sake and handed Rayberg his girlfriend. And Rayberg's like, I don't know. What do I do? I was like, I don't even know what to tell you about this one, bud. I mean, do what you gotta do, but wow. We left there. We went to Hokkaido, and the Sapporo Brewery is in Sapporo, obviously.
Okay.
It's like some old castle place, so there was like 6 Japanese restaurants, nice restaurants. And they had us in this place, and they, like you said, they put us up in this huge balcony where we were like, you know, the royalty looking over all the fiefdom eating their little meals, and we were up there. And so we start drinking. We continue to drink, and then food fights start where you're stabbing tofu with your chopstick and flinging it, flinging it over the balcony. And I went to fling one, and I flicked it too hard, and it went straight up and came straight down in our distributor, not the head dude, but like our liaisons, right in his beard. It just went whoosh. So we had a great dinner. We walk out, and I'm not going to name the lady's name, but there was a lady with us. We were hammered. And it's like a compound. It's like being in a college, but each little dorm was a restaurant kind of thing. It was weird.
Okay, like a nice food court, but restaurants?
But outside and snow on the ground, real Christmas story. And there's just people walking around going, because there's bars and blah, blah, blah. And so there's one of the girls with us, she's Japanese, like a couple dudes, younger dudes walking, and she flashes them, bang-o! And the dude passed out. Went, oh! And then bang! Yeah. That's probably the most amazing story about like a whole dinner and trip situation.
Do you hear anything about that, about the restaurant ever again, or is it just one of those things that happens?
That was it. I mean, we talk about it amongst ourselves.
And they probably talk about it amongst themselves as well.
Yeah, I tried to find it when I was in Sapporo, but, it's so tough there because they just kind of isolate you. You feel like you're Guns N' Roses or something when you go over there in a situation like that because they just isolate you within public. Like, here, they shuttle you onto a van, and then, choom, you're off over to here, and then, choom, you're here. And you have no idea, and there's a language barrier, and they don't really ever want to tell you no until the answer's no, like until it's already happening, and you're like, so where are we going? Oh, it's super cool. You're like, oh, great, like, but where is super cool, I was at like 6 ski resorts. I know one because we drank all the wine. There's glass, like a ice cream cooler with the glass tops, like those big ones.
Yeah.
We drank probably 20 bottles, 30 bottles of wine one night because it was unlocked. And this was like the night before the party, and we were like, oh, they left it up. We don't know anything. They just hand us this chateau, and, we're like, oh, they probably just closed it for us. But everything was unlocked. We were like, oh, yeah, this is great.
Because in their culture, they're not going to go in and take 20 bottles of wine.
Yeah, they have beer machines. You know what I'm saying? Kids aren't hammered. If there were beer machines in downtown Seattle, imagine. Like, you can buy a 64-ounce beer for, $15.
I mean, it would be crazy because some guy would be asking me for $3, and then I would give him $3, and then he would go straight to the beer machine and drink it, and then ask me for $3 again.
He would. If he was smart, he would just ask you for $15, and then he could get a 64.
Yeah, but if someone asked me for 15, if anybody asked me for more than $1, I don't give $1 to anybody anyways because I'm a terrible person. But if they asked me for 15, yeah, I would just laugh.
I gave $1 to this lady today when I was going to the Met Market to get my tea and crumpet.
Well, that's very nice of you. You don't see too many homeless people in West Seattle.
No, she wasn't a homeless person. She was campaigning for the cold season fund for homeless people. So,
well, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, it's cold. They're homeless. I never have cash in my wallet, and I felt kind of weird. I had $1 in my wallet, and I walked by. I was like, well, what are you selling? She's like, it's for the cold. Here you go. Here's $1.
Speaking of $1, I'm going to take a break real quick to talk about my sponsors. And my first sponsor is Evo. And if you haven't been to one of their stores in Denver, Seattle, Portland, or Whistler, you are missing out on the best retail experience in snow. But don't worry, if you can't get to a store, you can find all the brands at the best prices over at evo.com. You'll also get a low price guarantee, free shipping on orders over $50, and a no-hassle return policy. Evo is different than your traditional retailers, and they're committed to creating a great experience for you, giving back to those who need it, and creating community. They make a difference in a space where most don't, and that's worth supporting. My next sponsor is Rescue Water, and if you're a listener of the show, you've heard me talk about how Rescue Water is proactive recovery. You've heard me tell you that there's nothing that will hydrate you better than a Rescue Water, but have you tried it? If you haven't, you're missing out on feeling better and more hydrated after a workout, a day on the hill, or doing whatever athletic endeavor you're into. And on the nightlife side, drink one Rescue Water before bed and you will feel 100% in the morning. Please do me and yourself a favor and pick up some Rescue Water next time you're at the store or on Amazon. If you head on over to rescuewater.com, you'll get 20% off a 12, 24, or 48 pack when you enter the code RescueWaterTPM, that's RESQ Water TPM, all one word at checkout. Those are my sponsors, so we're right back at it. And getting back to where we left off, on the last podcast, we were talking about your graphic, the cease and desist that happened with the Cosby board. Cosby felt violated and pretty much bent right over, and I think he's done that to a lot of people. So easy. But you had to come up with a second graphic, it sounded like. And the second graphic, you picked a professional baseball team out of Japan. And how does that one work out?
It didn't work out too well. I thought it was great. It was the Yokohama Giants or something. Osaka Giants. Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those two. I just liked it because it was this weird little dude. And inside of his head, it says OG. So I was like, yeah, and it'll be Japan. And I mean, I was 19, and I thought about like, copyright infringement, but I didn't really give a shit. Like, I was like, whatever, bro. I'll sell so many of these things. I'd be sick.
But you already had one copyright infringement.
Yeah, but that was Cosby before he was that guy.
Do they have to pull boards off the market, and do you lose money because of copyright infringement, or is Ride giving you a check and then they're screwed?
So what happened is they made the first run, and the second run, Japan just freaked out. Like, no! You know, this is FET. If they would have been a little distributor, I think we would have been all right, but these guys were big.
They were big, and the baseball team could come after them and get something from them.
Yeah, so we just sent all the Fat Albert graphics to Japan.
Well, that works out.
Yeah, it's fun.
Is it around this time that you pick up the nickname Borg?
No, that was original Vermont stuff. It was Cyborg, and then Borg, Cyborg Nation. It's just like back in Vermont, we had our own gig language. So everybody had their own nickname, and they evolved as language does. beyond Borg. I mean, it went forever. And as long as you had a few of the letters in there, you know what I'm saying, and you could feel the correlation, you were good to go.
Back to your life. At this point, I think when we left off, at least, you were living in San Diego with Rayberg and some others, and I think you were working with Dub from the get-go when that brand started. Did you help launch them?
The Dub was Winfield, W.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
So what's your role with them other than the rider and naming a brand after you?
I did some design work with them, and basically I told Tim, all I really want is a clothing line, man. Like, that's what I want when we started riding. And Rayberg ended up getting it. So I was like, I'm definitely not going to ride for this stuff.
Is that Capel?
Yep. It was great and it was cool. Rayberg's the homie and all that, but...
You wanted your own thing.
That's all I wanted. That's it. And Pogue has his reasons, and I'm not mad at him, whatever. We'd all known Ken and Damon and Danny, all those dudes, and been getting 8-Ball and Drawer stuff forever. And then later into that DC sneakers, at about the same time, Ken and Damon were like, hey, you want to do a apparel brand? I mean, I didn't own any of it, but it was better than if I would have had, because I had like the illest dudes in the skate industry wanting to build a brand with me. For my little big ego, my little guy big ego, it was through the roof. You know what I'm saying? It was like, yeah.
And the skateboard world, where in snowboarding you have to be privileged a little bit to get into it. Anybody with $100 can get into skateboarding.
Anybody with fast hands can get into it.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. A much bigger market out there, so a lot more people are hearing your name. And then another brand I think you were affiliated with was Alphanumeric.
Yep, that was Alyasha Moore.
Was Sal part of that too?
Sal worked for them, yeah. It was Alyasha Moore and Omar Quiambo, and it was actually based out of Seattle. So the dudes that started Mecca, they were the money and the production behind it. But Alyasha came and worked for Dub for Circus Distribution, and then decided to start his own thing. I left with him.
I look at them, and it was told streetwear, and way before its time when people were doing that in terms of materials and stuff.
Yeah, it was real hip-hop stuff. I got to meet Mos Def. Alyasha grew up in Brooklyn. He was the first creative director at Fat Farm, like 20 years old. Him and the Off-White dude, Diamond Supply Company, that dude just put up a post and called him and the Off-White dude Alpha and Omega of the design world, like the street culture. So Ollie is the boss. He's on a completely other planet. For me, how I look at a designer is how far ahead of a trend and how on point they are themselves, and can they reel it back in? You need to be 2-3 years ahead to produce, so that when it's done, it's on trend. You know, there's design isn't just building cool shit. It's just not. You gotta have foresight and understanding, and it's brutal. So he grew up with Mos Def, Talib Kweli, Big L, in Brooklyn, all them dudes.
Did you see Mos Def when he played at Evo?
No, but I did see they set something up, and this was, Eminem wasn't, he was just coming out. So we were at Mount Snow, and there was this magazine out of Brooklyn or something called The Fridge. It was like a urban snowboard, skateboard, city, kind of weird hip-hop culture, like one of the snowboarding subculture thingy mags.
Kind of like Heckler with hip-hop?
Yeah, but deeper roots, more reach towards the artists and stuff. So I got to see, now this is in the 90s, maybe the biggest yin and yang of hip-hop. I got to see Eminem and Mos Def. And Mos Def was no drinking, put all your booze down if you want me to play. And Eminem's just, I don't even know what he was doing. He was on one, running into ski racks and just sending it. So that was at a ski resort in the lodge, nonetheless. Is where this party went down. And it was just...
That's insane, man. That kind of talent at a ski resort.
Yeah.
And I guess at the peak of your career, when you look at whatever the peak is, who's paying you? What are your 5-6 sponsors that are making your life happen?
Well, I mean, it kind of spanned a bit. So Ride, Dub, Alphanumeric. That was really it.
I heard you might have been sponsored by Jägermeister.
Yes, I was, but they didn't pay me.
They pay you in booze?
Oh, yeah. That was the only sponsor that I actually quit and didn't get fired from. You know what I'm saying? Like, fully. It was too much.
They're sending you as much Jaeger as you can drink.
And they also distributed Grey Goose back then. They were the first American, you know. It's like, I was getting this fancy pants vodka. Everybody was still on Absolute. I was like, no, man, try this shit. And then some sake, some really expensive sake. So every month I'd get like 2 bottles of Goose, a couple bottles of this sake, case of Jäger. And then the marketing manager, would always fly to somewhere where I was, take me and the homies out for a couple nights and just, brutal.
A great sponsor, but also probably not a great sponsor, because if you're an athlete and you're being fed booze by a sponsor all the time, it's going to affect your performance, I would think. Is the Jaeger time when partying ramps up for you?
No, what really, really ramped it up was when my mom died in 97. So, how did that go? So I watched somebody get paralyzed in front of me. 5 months later, my mom died. 5 days before her birthday and 7 days before mine.
Heavy shit.
And that was my only blood relative that I knew. And I was 25 years old. After that, it was...
You're solo.
Yeah, game over. Like, I'm just sending. Fuck it. You know, and there's self-medicate. And after that, it got a little bananas.
Is it okay to talk...
A little bit.
Yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit, because in the world of snow, weed and booze is a staple. Mushrooms are things that happen a lot, and I don't look at those as some of the things that are bad for you, really, because as long as you can do those in moderation, you're okay. But
in the immortal words of Rick James, man, cocaine is a hell of a drug. And I'll just say that. We can leave it there.
Based on your Rick James statement, harder things do happen. And is that something that you seek out, or is it something that finds you? Is it someone offering you some stuff, and you're like, yeah, I'll try it, and then eventually you start getting into it?
I grew up in New York City, so cocaine was always there. But I never really got super heavy into it because it was never really that accessible.
I always feel like with that one, if you're not in the circle of people that are doing it, you don't know about it. It's like people are going to the bathroom, this is happening, but if you don't know, you don't know. Because I've been blind to it for a long time, and then I go to one event every year, and now I kind of stand near the bathroom just to giggle because of everybody walking out sniffing their nose. Yep. And it's just like, that's what's been going on for the past 10 years here.
Yeah.
Partying is fun until it becomes not fun. And
that becomes your job.
And with drugs come crazy situations. I can give you my craziest drug experience, which isn't that crazy, but I have two. DC or Louisville.
Kentucky.
So I'm at a little trade show, and I want to get some weed. So we go to this cabbie, and he's like, yeah, we'll take you to get some weed. So I have this other guy with me who doesn't smoke weed, and he doesn't want anything to do with it. And he's like, oh, I'll go with you on this ride. Cabbie takes us to this project. And when he parks the car, he's like, both of you on the floor of the car right now. Lay down. And we're like, huh? And he like throws a blanket to the back for me. My friend's in the front, and he doesn't have anything covering me. And he's like, I'll be back in 5 minutes with your weed. And at this point, I'm like, I don't want weed that bad. Yeah. And we're laying there for like 20 minutes on the ground. My friend's like almost in tears in the front seat. I mean, he might have been crying. And I'm just apologizing in the back like, hey, man, sorry. It's not like I even needed to get weed. It just sounded like a good idea at 2 a.m. And eventually we got a bunch of seedy weed and headed home. But that was the scariest experience of my life in that. Have you had some crazy experiences around drugs?
Sure, man. I've been to jail a couple times.
More than a couple days?
Oh, yeah. You know what, man? You have to adjust to your situation. And if not, it's even worse. So, was it an enjoyable experience? Absolutely not. Did I get through it? Sure the fuck did.
And when you do and you get out, because he says a couple times, I guess you don't learn the first time, or you just head back into your ways. Because eventually it catches up to you and you're who you are today and you're fine. But back then, I mean, how many times did it have to catch up to you before you realize, hey, I got to change my shit?
A lot, man. And not to whatever, but being black, it's like there's a 90% chance you're going to go to jail.
For sure.
So, was I doing something wrong? Yeah. But, I mean, I didn't snowboard for 5 years.
Whoa.
I hated it. I didn't want anything to do with it. I worked a bit, played some golf, and just didn't snowboard. Didn't talk about it, didn't think about it. So, I got in trouble. And I'm not saying because I quit snowboarding, I got in trouble.
No, you got in trouble because you were doing shit while you were snowboarding that eventually took over snowboarding, it seems like.
Yeah, that and my mom dying. And not mentally taking care of it. Not going to either see somebody or, like, I didn't cry over that for years, dude. That's not healthy.
Not at all.
That you end up doing shit like I did, end up in jail because of drugs. But you get older and you hopefully figure most of it out.
And speaking of addictions, another one you mentioned is golf. And it seemed like you were super into golf. I mean, you started, I think, with Burt Lamar, a golf company.
Oh, no. I started that with Jack Coughlin and one of the money guys from Ride, Roger Madison.
Okay.
And it's crazy. I was the creative director. And if you look at a lot of the golf stuff now, it's just the same stuff I designed 20 years ago.
Cool polos.
Not only that it was cool, but I wanted stuff that worked. Like golf clothes back then didn't work. Golf shoes were uncomfortable. They didn't work. They didn't look cool. They didn't have design principles in there that had anything to do with either the golf swing or trying to keep you cool. There was just nothing that was like, okay, here's a polo shirt. This is what you wear golfing. And for golf, we're just going to upsize it. So you had like this big arm. They were made for fat, old country club dudes with huge guts. Like I'd put a golf shirt on. The shirt would be down to my thighs. It's like, what is happening? And I have it all tucked in. And I used to wear a lot of Nike tennis shirts playing golf because Nike tennis had it figured out. Because there was actual athletic movement in tennis.
Yep.
So you had to kind of think about design. You couldn't just have a 4 times oversized shirt because you'd sweat to death and it would stick to you and it just would be a mess.
Okay, so that's technical 58. And when do you make it to the Northwest? Because San Diego for a while, and how do you make the transition up? And is it because of Ride?
Partially. I was in San Diego and Colorado for years. So I kept my place in San Diego, and Ride always had a place for me. There's one in Tahoe and one in Colorado, and you kind of got relegated to one of the two. I got relegated to Colorado. So one year I was just like, you know what? I'm over it. Yeah, I was here. God, was that 1 year? I think I had the kid getting paralyzed and my mom flipped. So I was at Hood, and I was like, you know what? I'm over it. I'm over Colorado. I'm over San Diego. So I moved to Vancouver with like Devin and all them dudes. And then my mom died. And then I went back east, dealt with that. And it was kind of a pain in the ass because I was, what band was that? It's no fun being an illegal alien. Cars? I think it's the Cars.
Okay.
So I was running the Cars song up in Canada. So this was early interweb, so there was no financial transactions. I couldn't like get checks deposited here and then have my card. And so I'd have to like get them sent to one of the homies in Seattle and get them sent. It was just a pain in the ass. So I ended up just moving to Issaquah with Timmy Carlson and Greg Swees and all them dudes. So that was it. It was 97. But I'd been here since 91, 92.
Just throughout the Ride days, lots of time here. And then with Ride, you helped build the Ride team and their family for you. And you're on Ride for, 6, 7 years?
4, 5, 6 years maybe? 5, 6? I don't know. I block it all out.
And how does Ride end?
Messy.
Okay, because based on the passion I see out of you have to be pissed the fuck off, I would think, at that point. So how does it all fall apart?
Just get some egos in a room together, and it just ends.
But it's not money, it's not performance.
It's everything. I just wasn't given what I wanted, even close, and I was tired of how I felt like I was being taken advantage of. So, was I doing the right thing? Out there? Who knows, man? I was selling fucking snowboards.
That's why they pay you, to sell snowboards.
That's what I was doing. And maybe did they have some message to clean up for me? I don't know. Maybe. But I just wasn't getting what other people were getting. So I had somebody there that was in my court, and they gave me my stock options, and I got not a lot of them. I got like a quarter of what it was and cashed them in. And that was that.
I'm going to take one more sponsor break, and I'm going to start with Spy Optic. Spy has been around since 1994, so they have a long history supporting snow sports. And this year, they've produced the best goggle ever made, the Ace EC. That's a bold statement, but it's 3 lenses at the push of a button. I used it this weekend on a day where we had sun, we had snow, we had clouds, And 3 lens options meant I never had to think about changing my lenses while my friends were pretty much screwed. The ACC is a game changer, and you're going to have to pay full price for the best goggle in the world. But to save 20% on everything else Spy, head on over to spyoptic.com, place your order, then use the code capital TPM, the number 20. That's all one word, and you will get that 20% when you check out. My final sponsor is the 10 Barrel Brewery out of Bend, Oregon. They make beer and like to drink it outside, and the beer they make is awesome. And when they're not making or drinking their awesome beer outside, they're supporting some of the coolest projects and events in snow. The events start up on March 9th at Copper Mountain with the first of 3 Hella Big Air events. On March 23rd, there's the Goggle Tan Rail Jam at Ski Bowl. On March 30th, another Hella Big Air at Mount Bachelor. And the third and final Hella Big Air stop has been confirmed at Sierra at Tahoe on April 6th. So a lot of cool events. They also have Mike Bassett's Beer Cat, which is the first ever Snow Cat pub. So next time you're out buying beer, support the brand that supports you, the 10 Barrel Brewery. You can find out more about the events, their pubs, and the beer over at 10barrel.com. Those are my sponsors. Now let's get back into the podcast. So the next board sponsor I think that you have is a crazy one to me because I don't look at you as a wakeboarder, but I think you end up on Hyperlite. And how does that happen?
It's funny how that happens. I was going to ride for Atlantis, but some of my other sponsors weren't down with Atlantis, so that didn't happen. And then I kind of rode for World Industries for a minute.
Just getting flowed stuff?
Yeah, we were talking. Nothing ever really came of it. And then I kind of just lived off apparel money for a while, man.
That's where the money is in these sports, right? Is in clothing and shoes?
I've always been more of an apparel person anyways. I like clothes a lot and shoes. Since Ride, up until these days, I've always been mainly an apparel person. Like, I'm not a Holden team guy anymore. I'm damn near 50 years old.
But they have a Winfield jacket.
Yeah, they do have a Winfield jacket. Thank you, Mikey and Adam and Scotty, for that. And they take care of me.
They're doing some amazing things there.
Yeah, they're killing it.
And it's rider owned. He's had some bumps along the way, and he's back where he needs to be, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, Hyperlite, which is weird to me because if someone has a problem with Atlantis...
At that point, was I still on top? Yeah, it was a personal thing, the whole Atlantis thing. And so, Hyperlite was making snowboards for other companies. And I think it was the Pogues, which is a little weird. They had left Ride and all that. Or somebody like around there had hooked me up with Hyperlite. I think it was somebody in like the local community here. And because my East Coast background and I rode half pipe and the first Olympics were coming up and they were stoked on it, I was like, yeah, I'll try, man. We'll see. So I went to Switzerland with my then girlfriend and now ex, my baby mama. We went and it was cool because we left in August. Her parents have a place in Scotland at Glen Eagles, which is like, bro.
Baller place.
Sean Connery was there when I was there. Prince of Wales was there. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know where I grew up.
Yeah.
I was uncomfortable at this place.
Fish out of water?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was super cool. And everybody was so nice, and they gave us temporary membership, so I pretty much had carte blanche at like this multi-golf course, country and equestrian and off-road falconry club. And I'd walk into the whiskey bar, and all the kids were like my age who were serving me, and one girl comes up, she's like, who are you? Because like I must have been a rapper or something.
Yeah, to be there.
To be there. And it wasn't like, oh, you're black. It was more like, you're young and American, and what the fuck are you doing here?
There has to be a reason.
Yeah, like, who are you? Like, are you some pop star, you know?
Like, you have a concert here tonight?
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, I'm just here hanging out. So then we went to Switzerland, and I trained for a month with Jimmy Holopoff, and it was fun. I almost died in a gondola at Diable Ray.
How do you almost die in a gondola?
So at Diable Ray, you drive up from the village to this windy Swiss, you know how Swiss Family Robinson Road with the fucking goats and the fucking cows and the whatever else is on the damn roads and the sheer cliff on the side. And you get to this little gondola house. And then you look, and it's just like 300-foot cliff. Boom! So the first gondola is just to get you up this cliff.
Okay.
So you get in this thing, and it just comes out of the shack and goes straight up. We got about halfway up one morning, and the thing just released.
No.
Oh! Bango!
Like the rollback and it went back?
Back into the shack. Boom! Everything was everywhere. I fucking kicked the door up, and I was like, I'm out of here! They're like, oh, no, it's fixed. I was like, fuck you, it's fixed. I'm done for the day. I'm going back, drinking coffee, and hanging out. Like, that's enough. Like, that told me not to go snowboarding today.
That's fucking crazy.
Oh, it was brutal. It was brutal. And then I got back from Europe, and my checks weren't there. And they were like, well, while you were gone, we decided that we're not going to make snowboards anymore. And I had like 6 months left on my contract. And I was doing good. I wasn't partying. I was actually like training and getting, I was like, and so I called the Pogues, and they fully fucking had my back. So I got to appreciate that. And I got my contract paid, and it was good.
And those were the Hyperlite days. And was that kind of the tail end of your, I'd say, pro riding career, like with sponsors and everything like that?
I was done, dude. I mean, at that point, I was like, I'm over it.
I guess when people shit on you a bunch, too, it's like, do you even want to be there?
No. And some of it, admittedly, was self-inflicted.
Sure.
I'm not the guy who's poor me, I didn't do anything. Oh, yeah, I was fucking up. Like, I was.
But when someone signs you, they know they're going to have you, and there's going to be some baggage, and there could be some messes. And that's part of what you get, but you want to sell snowboards, and you do that as well. So that's part of the game.
Yeah, but people aren't that way. It sounds good.
Yeah.
Most people aren't that way, though.
And especially these days, I mean, not at all. No
oh,
one
well,
wants the
nobody's
problem.
getting paid anymore. Everybody that snowboards got a bunch of money, so they just pay their own way, for the most part. That's what I'm thinking, because I'm not hearing anybody's making any money. Well, a couple dudes.
Yeah, it's like 10 dudes.
If that.
Yeah, that are making real money, and everybody else should have a side job, but probably doesn't.
They do. It's called parents, or a fund, which is cool. I wish I had both of those things.
You had an allowance.
I did have an allowance. I did have one of those things. I had them both, but not no more. Now it's all me.
So the snowboarding career fades out. You end up working at Faction here.
I did for a little bit.
And that was a cool shop here in Seattle. It seemed to have like a big music presence as well. It seemed like a lot of the musicians were coming through. And
yeah, it was just, 10 years, 6 years too early. Now, I wasn't owner. I didn't have any part of that. But from my understanding, it's kind of what Zoomies ended up being, is what Tim's, maybe more an Evo than a Zoomies. I'd say it was the original Evo.
Yeah, just mixing sports culture. And
yeah, just making a cool spot. So it was like the original Evo.
And so you're there for a little bit, and then I think you have a period of real estate, design, a whole bunch of other things in your life, because you're a pro snowboarder for most of your life. And then when the checks stop coming in, it's not like you've developed other skills. I guess you have developed design skills, but it's got to be a scary thing where you're like, oh shit, I got to pay the rent now, or oh shit, I got to do this, or I would think it would be.
I developed skills, man. Like, through all the mess that I learned how to design stuff. I had interests growing up other than snowboarding, and thank God I had a good education.
Yeah, you're a smart dude. You were going to be a diplomat at one point.
I just kind of fell right back on that, like just my education. I'm going to say it saved me. I've had my share of quote-unquote ditch digging jobs, but whatever, it's life, man.
And then it seems like there's bits and pieces of you in media and all different places around snowboarding now, because you're a legend in the sport and it should never be forgotten. And now you're involved with Offshore Snowboards, which I know nothing about. So what is Offshore Snowboards?
Offshore Snowboards is an awesome group of dudes, Australian dudes, that have spent a lot of time in Niseko. They were snowboard fans when snowboarding was cool. So they grew up in my era. That's their idea of snowboarding. And they decided they wanted to have a factory in Niseko at the base of the lift in Moiwa, where you could ride and buy. Kind of like your dude at J Skis. Imagine if J Skis was at the base of, I don't know, Baker. It's that kind of thing. So it's like we used the best materials possible. We contracted one of the two best snowboarding engineers in the world, and it's not JG, and you've worked with him, Paul McGinty.
Yep. I didn't realize he was the best. I know him well.
I think, he's an engineer, and I think my shapes are better than his shapes, but his understanding of side cut and cores, he's the king at that. Like the whole carbon array layups, and Ride uses pop rods. We use something a little different. We call them pump pins. It just reacts a little different. Same thing. And his knowledge on setting up factories and building, he's just money. Like, aside from JG, Alex Warburton is super good too. I don't know about his engineering stuff, but I know, like, I see his stuff and I've always been really intrigued. He's another real smart dude, Warburton, as far as signing. But Josh Monin is kind of the brainchild of it, and Richie is his business partner. And so they bought some acres right at the base of Moiwa, built a factory, and housed it with the best materials and a super nice press and a CNC machine and sublimation and finishing.
These guys got some money behind them.
There's not any money for us, but you know what? That's not what this is about for me. This is about if I could have somebody building me vehicles and told me, well, we're going to let you design them and tell us what to make. We're not going to pay you, but we're going to give them to you. Okay. Like, we don't expect you to really do too much, you know? Just help us out.
Yeah, it's a pretty awesome relationship.
Sounds great to me.
And you get a trip or so to Japan every year, I would think?
Yeah, if I want to.
Yeah, I would think you want to every once in a while.
Yeah, every couple of years. But let me tell you, I live in Washington because Colorado's the best place to go snowboarding. Don't ever come here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I could have lived anywhere when I chose here. Japan is awesome, and the snow is awesome, and the culture is next level. I just like a different mountain shape. It's great. I mean, I love it. I have an amazing time every time I go there.
You're not complaining about it.
No. Just to me, it's not like fucking heaven. It's not a Mecca. You know what I'm saying? I'm not like, ah.
Like every person on social media?
Yeah.
Earlier you said the offshore guys were fans of snowboarding when snowboarding was cool. And if you look at snowboarding today from your perspective, what makes it not cool? And not the act, obviously. It's the industry, I would.
It's just a business, man. No, it's real businessy. We all got into snowboarding because we didn't like the establishment. Now it is the establishment. And certain people are lying about being the establishment. And they are. You know, it's like, oh, yeah. Come on, bro.
It's as mainstream as it gets now.
Yeah, it's not about being mainstream. It's just about... Oh, maybe it is a little bit. I don't know, man. It's just different. Okay. And it's not that I hate it. It's different. It's different from why I got into it. And that's the evolution of it. And that's why a couple people are making a lot of money. And riders really aren't. That's kind of weird to me. Like, people are making a lot of money. And snowboarders aren't. Because you know what? They're like, well, we'll just go pick the next one and turn him into a star. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can look at it like the founding fathers of this country might not agree with where we are today, like the founding fathers of snowboarding might not agree where the industry is today.
Yeah.
Well, at this point, and we've gone through your career and kind of gotten to offshore, I have a question here about your daughter, but you know what? I don't need to talk about your kids other than you have a kid who's on scholarship to Chapman University, and I think that comes from the lineage that you have because it seems like you come from a really smart family and you had a really good education as well. Pass it on to your daughter. She has a scholarship. That's amazing. I'm just going to throw that out there because it's a cool thing. But I finish the show with something called Inappropriate Questions. And sometimes I have people that I'll bring in and have ask you 3 inappropriate questions. And I had Rankwit, but I just couldn't get him on the line.
Oh, thank you, Jesus, for that.
That didn't happen. So I've got some inappropriate questions for you. And the first one has to do with faction. How does faction end?
Hard sand, not knowing. I really wasn't that much of a part of it. Faction for me or faction for...
Faction for you.
I got fired.
Why did they fire you? Because you're a snowboarder working at a snowboard shop?
I was just fucking going too hard, bro. I was partying.
It was that time in life?
Yeah, we need you to stop working here. All right.
Any hard feelings with them?
No, not at all.
It's kind of like you understood, like, yeah I guess I did that.
Yeah.
Okay, I will go with inappropriate question number 2. So it sounds like you started a glove company with Joey Florence back in the day.
Yes.
And this glove company never really went anywhere because all the stuff from the glove company was stolen or something happened. What happened with the glove company?
I don't even remember. That was at the party time. What did happen?
Because I think the house got broken into and all the shit got stolen, that you got computers and everything.
I did have a computer stolen. Yeah, who knows?
So that inappropriate question is going to be a blur. And my final inappropriate question, before the movie The Ladies' Man was even thought of, you were the real ladies' man, it sounds like. And I can leave that at that. But what was your number? We don't have to talk about stories.
Only amateurs count, bud.
Okay, if you had to give a ballpark.
I'm not really that much of a ladies' man, so smoke and mirrors.
All right, well, it has been awesome having you both on part 1 and part 2. A little bit tamer here in part 2. I think we were sending it a little in part 1.
We were sending it.
And I thank you for your time, man. It's been awesome, and I'll look forward to seeing you around. And we live near each other. We should see each other around.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So that was time with Russell Winfield. And it's always interesting to get perspective from a living legend. And Russell's perspective is that snowboarding is a business, and it's not cool. While I might not agree with the cool part, everything is a business these days. The only thing I can think of in snow that is a true passion project is protect our winners. But if you're a brand, a media outlet, or anything in the world these days, the bottom line matters. But it sounds like Russell's problem with the business part is that the athletes themselves are the only ones not seeing dollars. Maybe snowboarding needs a union, and maybe Russell can be the one to start it. Who knows? I want to thank everyone for listening to the show and ask you to review me on iTunes or whatever platform you listen to me on. Finally, I want to thank Evo, Rescue Water, Spy Optic, and the 10 Barrel Brewery for making this show happen. Have a great week, everyone.